Good morning and happy Black History Month. As we bring this month to a close, we reflect back on the Negro spiritual sung by Ellis Peters and her dad, and Galilee's own poet laureate, Cheryl Davis, speaking her poem. Can't wait to see them both take the world by storm with their God given talents. But what does Black History mean to you? Black History is a month to celebrate the achievements of Black Americans. We are continuing to break glass ceilings. Just this week, Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated to become a Supreme Court Justice, an African American woman. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in the United States history. Also known as African American History Month, this event grew out of Negro History Week, the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. This Black History Month and beyond, we're honoring the creativity, agency, and vitality of Black Americans by celebrating changemakers of the past while supporting future ones. In honor of Black History Month, we remember and celebrate the powerful work of God in and through the lives of influential African Americans also. From enslaved Christians and abolitionists through the Jim Crow era to civil rights figures, the believers worked and served as leaders in the church and powerfully impacted society. In closing, Black history is American history. It starts on January 1st and ends December 31st, each and every year. But we celebrate it in the month of February. As one of the themes this year says, honoring the past and inspiring the future. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Here is a quote on Black history from James Baldwin. If you know whence you came, there is really no limit to where you can go. Happy Black History Month.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Carrington, and I'm here to tell you what Black history means to me. Black history to me means recognizing those, uplifting those, and just shedding light on those that has made sacrifices and that has paved the way for the Black families and communities that you see today. I'm very grateful because I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for all the hard work put in before me. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, Black people today are doing things that was unheard of. We're starting businesses, graduating from Ivy League colleges, working dream jobs in corporate America or in whatever industry that, you want to name. But that's what it means to me. And, we don't take it for granted. And, I feel that we're going to take that history, continue to use it for a roadmap for a Black future, where we continue to break barriers and where we continue to unleash, our gifts and our opportunities that is still, oppressed today, that is still, taken away from us today. So that's what it means to me. Thank you.
Good morning, Galilee. Sister Natalie asked me to share some of my thoughts on Black history. And as I often say, since February is the shortest month of the year that they have given us to celebrate our Blackness, remember, I'm Black 365 days a year, so I celebrate my Blackness all year long. But I am grateful to God for who He is in my life and for where I am and what I have. But I am also very grateful to my grandparents and my foreparents who were slaves and descendants of slaves for the sacrifices they made for us to have the things that we have. When I look back, I remember my grandmother telling me of our great-great-great-grandfather who did not want his children to be separated. And when the master decided to sell them off, he would interfere. He would take them off the block. They would put one on the block and he would take them off. And he would receive a massive beating. And then they put one on, he'd take them off. And he'd get beat again until one slave owner bought all of them and therefore kept the family together. And that would be an act of mercy, even for a slave owner. So my grandparents came up hearing this and knowing how important family was. And we've always been instilled that family is the best thing besides Jesus Christ that you can have, and how we love on each other, and how we don't separate like blood lines. This is my brother and my sister and my cousins, and for all of us, the Bournes, the Andrews, Clan, the Shears, we have stayed together. We have gone down through the years celebrating one another. We still have family reunions, and we come together to remember, to memorialize the sacrifices of our great-great-grandparents who were slaves, and how important owning property was. My grandmother's from an area called Waston, and they owned property there. We are reaping the benefits of that property even to this day. And so it was important to keep family together. It was important to be hardworking people and educated people. And so that was important to them. They were founders of churches in Boston as well as here in Dallas, the Shady Grove Baptist Church. Some of my foreparents were founders of that church. And so we have this rich history. They were Christian people, and they trusted God and leaned and depended on Him. And likewise, my grandfather was a member of Grace Chapel Baptist Church, and so he was also the Iceman. And when I grew up, although my grandfather passed away when I was just about 7 years old, but he was a hard-working man. He believed in supporting his family and keeping the family together, and he instilled those things in us to trust God and to lean and depend on Him. And but before he passed away, he made 4 provisions. We grew up in an area called Roosevelt Heights, which was a flood area. It was a Freeman's town initially, but it was a flood area. And so at some point they bought that area out. And because my grandfather had bought property before he passed away, my grandmother was a homeowner when we were relocated out of Roosevelt. Our church where we serve now was relocated from the Roosevelt area. We have and we know what it means to suffer through and to endure hardships. We've been there, they've been there, and so, but in all, we know God has been the underlying factor in our lives. He's been our sustainer and has kept us together. I remember going to Joseph J. Rose Elementary School, and then desegregation happened, and we were one of 33 children that were sent to a white school, all white school, and it was always confusion. That was a very hard time for us, talking about we were going to have riots and all of these types of things. We were in the 4th and 5th grade. Didn't even know what a riot was. And so we were going through and we had to endure these types of things. But we made it through. And so we have this rich heritage in our families. We have lawyers and doctors and judges and government workers and nurses and preachers and teachers and all of this because of the sacrifices of those very proud people to dress yourself up, keep yourself together, know whose you are. And my mom would always say, girl, act like you got some sense and know whose you are and where you're going and where you're from. And so we kept those things in our hearts. And so I'm very proud of my heritage. Likewise, when I think of the sacrifices of John Lewis and for Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King and all of those names that I can't even think of right now, but what they've gone through for us to have the things we have is an humbling experience. I am humbled by the fact that I live in a house now that was built in 1964. And I often think that in 1964, my mom or my grandmother would have had to be the maid and the cook in this community because we weren't allowed to live here. And so I'm grateful for where God has brought us and what we have today. I'm always aware that we have what we have because of Him. But my family still, we love on each other. We celebrate each other from the youngest to the oldest. And it is important that we stay together and that we always are aware of the sacrifices of those that came along before us, the slaves. And we're standing on their shoulders, and descendants, we are descendants of slaves, and songs of blessed assurance and things like that. We still have family reunions where we remember who we are and how far we've come because of the grace of God. And so I'm always aware of his goodness and his mercy. And so I'm grateful to him for who we are today. I'm grateful for the heritage and to remember this lady, Mary in Columbus, this couple, Mary in Columbus this year. My great-great-grandparents. I remember my mom, my grandmother, Mary Andrews, who taught us to love God and to trust him. Life has been rough sometimes, but we're still here and we're still moving forward because of the grace of God. God bless you.
Good morning, Galilee family. What Black history means to me is standing on the shoulders of people who've come before us and the doors that they opened and the legacy and traditions that they created for all of us to follow. Personally, attending the University of Alabama was standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who've come prior to me. Only 50 years before I attended the university, the first Black student ever attended the University of Alabama. If it wasn't for the doors that they opened, I would have never had the opportunity to be able to attend this university. And I'm forever grateful for that and the milestones that are made by them and so many other Black people in our community to progress us all forward and put us where we are today and continue to have us strive forward into better things. And I'm forever grateful for all of that. And that is what Black history means to me, just remembering where we come from so that we can move forward and progress into a bigger and better community.